All right. Hello and happy Monday. How's everybody doing out there? All right. Um, yeah, it's been quite the Aries season, huh? Think it's been thank you very much. Yeah, I really like this jacket. I have a lot of costumes and cool clothes that I don't feel like I can wear out in the world. Um, or I don't get like a lot of opportunity to wear them. And so I think that this is a great opportunity to kind of like show off my style. So yeah, I appreciate that. Also, I haven't scheduled it yet, but sometime in May, I'm going to be doing a talk on AstroStar Live about fashion and astrology and sort of thinking about how to dress for the astrologically minded and cool stuff that we can wear and ways that we can consider adorning ourselves. Excuse me, based on our astrology or the astrology or relationship to the planets. Excuse me. And also happy Earth Day, everybody. Yeah, I think that Earth Day like when we're thinking about astrology, right? We're thinking about our relationship to space, right? And there tends to be a lot of either like looking up or even more like looking at the map of like what's happening in space. And I think that it's really good to remind ourselves that we're living on planet Earth, and to like think about our connection to planet Earth. And it's Taurus season. Taurus season kicked off. Let me scroll back through on the 19th. And so that was the sun's ingress into Taurus. We didn't talk about that so much because the day after we had the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction at 21 degrees of Taurus, which sort of overshadowed last week's report. It also totally overshadowed my radio show. But this week we're getting the full moon in Scorpio, which is happening on April the 23rd. I have it the exact full moon at 5:48 p.m. Mountain Time, which would make that 4:48 on the West Coast and 7:48 on the East Coast. Thank you for approving of my jacket. I got the Taurus seal of approval for this jacket. Thank you. That means a lot to me. But we didn't talk so much about the archetype of Taurus or Taurus season because the Jupiter Uranus conjunction sort of overshadowed it. So we'll be talking more about those archetypes this week. Ideally, hopefully. I didn't even get to it on my radio show because the Jupiter Uranus conjunction, which I spent a good deal of time on last week, but I think that it's worth kind of unpacking a little bit more, because that is a big moment for the astrology of this year. And also, I don't know, it's nice to sort of like unpack these things because when we're getting a transit like this, which happens about every 14 years, it's not like one and done, right? It's not just that moment of conjunction and then like it's all good and we go on our way, right? That's been building for a while, right? And I think increasing the intensity, and then we have this like moment, maybe there's like a click, right? Something gets revealed, maybe like a seed is planted, right? And then as we move away from it, that sort of vibe unfolds, right? And we get to sort of see how things unfold. And we can consider it like a new moon and a full moon, right? The seed is planted at the new moon in the darkness, right? And then as the moon continues to move away from the sun and begins to wax, things kind of begin to reveal themselves until we get to the full moon moment where we have kind of the culmination in some ways of the seed that was planted. It begins to show, it begins to take shape, and we can observe it in some ways. And then the moon continues in its waning cycle, and we are releasing and releasing and creating space for the new moon, right? Where a new seed can be planted. And so I bring this in also because the full moon that we will be receiving tomorrow, Tuesday the 23rd, is the kind of reveal, right? The big reveal or the culminating point from the seed that was planted during the last new moon, which was the total solar eclipse. And so, maybe themes, right, or ideas or whatever, whatever was planted during that total solar eclipse, we might be getting some hints of how that's unfolding, what that's looking like, what is being revealed or illuminated from that eclipse energy, right? And we might, in the next coming days, be like, oh, that's what it looks like, or oh, that's what's going on. And, I feel like the whole month of April has pretty much been like that because we had Mercury station retrograde on April 1st. Ha ha ha, April Fools, right? And then from there, it's just been like madcap hilarity. Right. It feels like a slapstick chase scene from a movie to me, where it's just been like this thing and this thing, right? Mercury conjunct Chiron, total solar eclipse, right? Jupiter conjunct Uranus. And then this full moon in Scorpio, I think, is also kind of revealing some things. And Scorpio tends to reveal the uncomfortable bits, the things that we don't want to look at, the stuff that's taboo, the stuff that has been kind of swept under the surface, right? Swept under the rug. And if we think about the kind of Taurus Scorpio axis, right? And this comes from my teacher, Stephen Forrest. And I love to tell this story. And this is just what makes sense to me in the kind of polarity of Taurus and Scorpio. Stephen was like, there's great god Scorpio and great god Taurus sitting on a beach, and they're just hanging out, right? Sipping a pina colada, looking at the horizon. And great god Taurus is like, whoo, oh man, it's all so simple. And great god Scorpio looks at them, looks at the horizon, and it's like, yeah, man, it's all so complicated. Right? And I think that uh that um access to a T, right? Taurus is like, it's so simple, right? It's just like we're grounded, we're here, it's the earth. And Scorpio is like, oh, but it's like so complicated. And I speak as a Scorpio rising, right? Who is just like, I don't believe anything that's on the surface. I want to like get down there. I want to get up in there, right? Scorpio wants to get to like the marrow of the thing, thinking, right? Because I don't know if like going deep is always like the answer, because I think we find the same thing. Oh, thank you very much. Um, I think we find the same thing on the surface, right? Where it's just two different ways of looking at things, and that's how the polarity functions, right? And I think the ideal in all of this is to be able to hold the opposites, right? To hold the complexity and the simplicity, and to stand in between, and to like cultivate the secret third thing, which is maybe that hieros gamos, right? The connection of the complexity and the simplicity, and what arrives out of that as we're able to hold these opposites, right? And so, I've been, do we have anything before? No. We're going to start with this full moon and some of the energy that I've been thinking about. And, I've maybe been thinking about this in a different way or in an interesting way. I like went on a long hike yesterday where I was like, what am I going to say about all of this? Right? Like it's all so simple. How can it be so simple? Right? How do I complexify this? What is like the real meaning at the root of it? And one of the things that comes up for me is with this sort of idea, right, of we have fixed water, which is Scorpio, right? And we have fixed earth, which is Taurus, right? These two fixed signs. And then to top it all off, squaring this full moon, we have Pluto in fixed air, right? Which is creating a pretty tense square to this full moon, to this fixed axis. So there's a lot of like fixed energy in there. And I've been thinking about that. And I've been thinking about sort of the ideas and themes that are kind of related to this fixed energy, that are related to Taurus and Scorpio. And we'll bring in the Aquarius and the Pluto in a little bit. And one of the things that I've been thinking about is the sort of Taurus point, right? And the kind of mythology that is surrounding Taurus, right? And I think some some of people's favorite myths about Taurus is the myth of King Minos and the Minotaur. Right. And in a nutshell, Minos is like, yo, I want to be king. Hey, Poseidon, will you like send me a sign? Will you send me a bull that will prove my divine right to rule? And once you do that, I'll sacrifice it to you and we'll be all good. And Poseidon's like, yeah, dope, man. Like, here you go. Like, sends them a bull from the ocean. And King Minos is like, oh my God, that is the most beautiful bull that I've ever seen, right? Wins the election or whatever they're doing back then, right? Takes power because everybody's like, damn, that dude's got a beautiful bull. Like, I want to vote for him. Right. So he takes this bull and he's like, I know I'm supposed to sacrifice it, but like, would anyone know if I just sacrificed this other bull? Right. So he keeps the divine sea bull and sacrifices one of his terrestrial bulls. Poseidon is not amused, right? And so Poseidon does what any, vengeful sea god would do, and he gets Aphrodite to cast a spell on Minos's wife to fall in love with the bull, and she is swept away with an unquenchable desire for this bull, and so she gets the craftsperson Daedalus to make a structure where she can do it with the bull. And they have a child, which is the Minotaur, which Minos is horrified by. The Minotaur has the head of a bull and the body of a human, and so he has Daedalus construct a labyrinth and throws the Minotaur in the middle. Right. And then he's like, all good, right? I'm the king. But I just need you to send me seven youths every year so that I can just, that's how we're gonna keep things together, right? And don't ask about them. And so I think this brings up kind of that Taurus Scorpio axis, right? We have the on the surface, all good, right? Running the kingdom. We just need like seven youths every year. It's not really a big deal. But underneath, right, there is this sort of monstrosity that is living in the center, which is in this case a family secret, right? And it is the thing that has been repressed and like pushed away and hidden in a literal maze in the like center of the system. Um, and which is being, fed children, right? Being fed the innocent, being fed the youth, to sort of maintain the power of the kingdom. And I think that's sort of the part where the Scorpio comes in, because Scorpio's like, well, what's in the center of that labyrinth that all these screams keep coming from? And Taurus is like, nah, all good. Like, we good here, you know? And so I want to like deepen this a little bit, right? Joseph Campbell talks about this myth a lot in The Hero with a Thousand Faces, which I'm kind of rereading and listening to simultaneously. And I love this book. And this is the book where Campbell sort of lays out the hero's journey. Um, but he talks about this myth and he talks about King Minos as like King Holdfast, right? The tyrant Holdfast, who is like anything to keep power. And I think this is where that idea of like fixed earth becomes kind of problematic, right? And I'm not saying this about any of you beautiful Taurus people out there, right? Y'all are great, but I'm talking about this sort of archetypal energy of Holdfast as this is my stuff, right? These are my resources and I'm gonna hold on to them, right? I'm holding on to power. And what Joseph Campbell talks about is the sort of idea of rulership turning over. In Greece it was supposed to turn over, I think, every 8 years, which is very similar to the American system. In India it was once every 12 years when Jupiter and the sun conjunct. Or when Jupiter makes a full rotation around the zodiac. That's what it is. And then the king was supposed to cede power, right? Or there was ritual sacrifice of the king, or the old was supposed to give way to the new. And I think this energy for us is really up, because that's what happens in a total eclipse of the sun, which we just experienced on April the 8th, right? And this full moon is the kind of culmination of that, right? Um, somebody saying both of my parents are baby boomer Torians. Yeah, and I think this idea, right, of holdfast is maybe, we're seeing this play out with the baby boomers, right? And no shade against any of the baby boomers, but also we have two candidates for president who are like pretty old in America, right? And the people who are trying to hold power, and this is not just like generations, this is also people with exorbitant wealth, right? The people who are in power, right? And for King Minos, he was like, oh, the way that I hold power, instead of like turning it over and sacrificing it, right? Instead of sacrificing the bull, right? And which would have been the normal progression of things, he tries to hold on to it, and he tries to like sidestep the agreement of how things regenerate themselves. And so instead of him being the one that is sacrificed and him turning over power, he is asking the Athenians to send him the youth every year to feed to the Minotaur, right? To feed to this monstrosity, which comes from that consolidation of the power and the refusal to let go, right? The fear of ceding power to the next generation. And so, yeah, I'm just thinking about this idea of like the tyrant holdfast and the ways that power is consolidated and what happens when we consolidate power and how that cuts it off from the flow of life, right? From the energy of change, from the new and the innovative that can come in, right? And I think that any way that we look, we can see this taking place, right? And like old stale systems that are refusing to let go of power. And what we need in the Minotaur myth is Theseus to come and enter into the center of the labyrinth and kill the Minotaur, right? And I think the Minotaur is also an interesting character, right? Because there's all of these sort of hybrid creatures in Greek mythology. The centaur, one of my favorites, being a Sagittarius, is one of them, but the centaur has the head of a human and the body of an animal. And for the Greeks, it was real problematic when you had the head of an animal and the body of a human, right? Because you are losing your kind of higher human function. That is the animal will taking over, right? That is the losing that higher consciousness that we really praise as human beings, which I think is sort of an elitist model, but it makes sense, right? If you have the power of a bull that's running the show and the body of a human being with opposable thumbs, that can do a lot of damage, right? And I think this is what happens when Minos takes himself out of the flow, right? Out of the flow of power turning over and things being able to change in that organic process of life. Um, and so what gets created is this sort of like hungry ghost, this beast that lives in the center, right? That is always howling, that is needing to be fed the youth to like keep things going, to keep like the status quo, which I think is like pretty problematic, right? And if we want to like look at this through the lens of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, right? Uranus being like new technology, being revelation, being kind of breaking out of the like bonds of what is known and what is stable. Um, I think like I don't know, for some reason I always think about like Frankenstein as a Uranian as a Uranian moment, right? And the sort of like hybridization of like human and animal and like technology and these sort of like places where technology can create monstrosity as like Uranus and Taurus, right? And I think about the Minotaur as like a Uranus and Taurus like going maybe sideways or going wrong, right? I don't know if it's wrong, but for lack of a better word. And so like this kind of like thing that is created in the center, right? Hidden away from the world that is like needing to be fed. right? And whether that's like companies and billionaires needing to keep like a profit line, right? I mean, creating a monstrosity of like mental health concerns from social media, right? Creating a monstrosity from, climate change that is all like being kept in the center of the labyrinth that no one can get to, right? That no one can really expose, that no one can unpack, that no one can defeat or transform, right? And, I'm thinking about this also in the context of kind of what's happening on the national stage around protests that are happening at Columbia, at Yale, all these Ivy League institutions, pro-Palestinian demonstrations, and one the kind of fear that like Jewish students are feeling. I don't know, like I'm reading it in the news, so I'm not like on the ground and I haven't participated in any of these events. I'm just like looking at it from a detached view, but like watching state-sponsored violence against students who are protesting a war and a genocide, right? And watching like the ways that power is consolidating and I guess like pushing away dissent or protest, right? I also don't know how these protests are unfolding, and I don't want to get into like right or wrong or good or bad in this, but this is something that I'm observing, right? And as we get this like Jupiter Uranus moment, the sort of like lightning flashpoint, right, around Jupiter, which is culture, is as education and spirituality, right? Jupiter runs universities, right? Universities are a Jupiterian place, and we have this Uranian like revolutionary moment at a university level. And we also have university administration, like calling the police on protesters and having their encampments broken up and students arrested for trespassing on the campuses that they pay like $60,000 a year to go to. It's just an interesting moment to observe. And I think this is also, right, the Athenian youth being like fed to the Minotaur in some ways, right? And so, again, right, this idea of fixed Earth and like the holding of power, right? And who holds power. And I think Pluto is squaring this full moon, right? And Pluto is the planet of power, right? Pluto is the planet of transformation. Right. And I think wherever Pluto shows up, it's like, okay, that's where power is, or who has power, right? Or it shows power struggles, especially in a square, which is square puts us at cross purposes, right? And again, if we think about the sun as the solar consciousness, right, as what is illuminated, what is seen, what is the ego identity, and the moon as maybe lunar consciousness, what is intuitive, what is kind of instinctual, what is unconscious, right? And then we have Pluto kind of squaring them, right? And so we have like power at cross purposes with our conscious and unconscious, right? And that is maybe an integration point of that sort of like power element, or what needs to transform here so that power, instead of being consolidated in one place, right, and forcing that unconscious into the like center of the labyrinth as the Minotaur, as this sort of freak, right? um or like power being like, oh, we need to like sacrifice things constantly to this beast that we have created, right? um how can power be shifted? What needs to transform, right, in ourselves so that power can be shifted and maybe like spread horizontally, which I think is the ideal in Aquarius is the sign of the collective, of the people, right? And I think Aquarius says give power to the people, right? And and the people who those who hold the power are pretty like against that, right? Because once you get power, you're like, this is mine, right? And if somebody was to take this, then I would have nothing. And I think there's a real scarcity that comes with that kind of that holding of power. And that's why King Minos becomes that tyrant holdfast, right? Because if I don't have it, right, maybe somebody will do something bad to me, or maybe I will have no power. And I think what we get to do over the next 20 years is figure out how to like share power laterally instead of having these horizontal power structures, right? I also see this, right, in the proposed banning of TikTok, right? Which is like, what better way to piss off the youth than to steal their TikTok? Or, we could think about that as the sacrifice of the Athenian youths, right? The Athenian youths TikTok to the Minotaur, right? To that beast at the center of the labyrinth. That is the thing that like keeps the power going, right? It is the machine in the center that keeps the power going. It is the terror that makes King Minos continually need to like hold on to power, right? And so I think I talked a lot about the shadow side of Taurus right there. Um, but I also want to bring in the maybe not shadow side, right? Um, and I think that uh, one of the ways that we access that is through Venus, right? The planet of love, beauty, aesthetics, right? Sensuality and values. And I think Taurus is connected to resources, right? And resources are connected to our values, or our values are maybe like our core resource. And I think every time Taurus comes around, it's like, okay, what do I value here? Right? What makes me feel good? What do I love? And I think a perversion of that is power, right? I need to have power to have the things that I love, right? And like kind of a step down from that is I need to have money to have the things that I love, right? And I think that that is kind of a fairy tale or a myth that is created by capitalism. Sometimes it is very real, right? And I feel that scarcity a lot, in my existence, whether it's true or not. But I think that Taurus is also like, but also look around, right? Look at the kind of beauty of this world that we get to live in. And this again is Earth Day, right? Which is a great opportunity to sort of feel into the beauty of things, right? To feel into the sensual, to get in touch with what we value, what makes us feel valuable, what makes us feel supported. And I think Taurus also helps us to like slow down. This Aries season was just like full on, like bursting through the surface, questing, right? Battling, struggling. And now Taurus season is like, okay, that's chill. We're here now. Right? Go touch some grass, go lay down, right? Take it slow, allow it to be simple, right? And I think that is the blessed simplicity there is Taurus being able to like chill out and be like, what do I got? Right. And I think something that happens in the scarcity is we lose sight of what we got, what's supporting us, what we have, what resources are available to us. And I think it can be like, no, but I need more, I need more, I need more. Like I need to be in the grind, always grinding, always in the hustle. And being able to like slow it down and be like, what's working here? Right? What feels good? How do I know when it feels good? Right? And be able to really connect into the abundance of the earth, right? To really connect into the regulated nervous system of the earth. And I know that, you know, the earth is a tumultuous place these days, right? There's a lot going on. And also, I think that there is a co-regulation that we can come into with the earth, with the ground, with trees, with plants, right? They all have their own like version of a nervous system. And I think one of the things that is really helpful in a relational context is being able to co-regulate with animals, with people, with the planet, with plants, right? Things that help to equalize our nervous system. And I think that the earth has a great ability to do that. I think that people have known this for centuries, and we kind of lost sight of that around the Industrial Revolution, where we put profits over anything, right? But I think Earth Day or Taurus season is a great opportunity to re-remember or just remember the regulated nervous system that we are living in all of the time, and to come into connection, come into relationship with that. And again, the Taurus is a Venus ruled sign, right? So Venus is a planet of relationality, of relationship, right? And Venus also one of the only gods that like hangs out with humans, right? That comes and like mates with human beings. Where if you were to fall in love with Venus, Aphrodite, you wouldn't be killed, right? Maybe, right? Depends on how you treat them, but like, if you like saw Artemis, for example, bathing, like that was all bad, right? If you were Apollo's consort, like you were probably done for. Like these people do not have good track records with long-term relationships or keeping their partners alive. But Venus, on the other hand, like is sort of constantly engaged with heroes, with humans, and there's a relationality that happens between the human and the divine world. Right. And love, right? Venus as the embodiment of love is sort of a conduit that connects us to the divine. And I think also connects us with the terrestrial realm. Right. And so I just wanted to bring that in as the kind of maybe flip side of that Taurus archetype, right? As the sun's moving through Taurus, we have the like tyrant holdfast archetype in that fixed earth, and we also have the ability to like slow down and regulate our nervous system through relationship, right? And I think that is the like keep it simple stupid of Taurus, is like it doesn't need to be all this, it can just be like, okay, right. I have my hands on this like solid thing. It feels cold. It's helping to like ground me, right? And that's really simple. And I think that we can get lost in the sauce of the complexity and forget about our ability to come into regulation with through relationship with like what we got around us and the resources of our body, of the earth, of our what we have, what we are connected to, without having to like hold so tightly. Dig? So let's introduce the Scorpio full moon. Right. And so this full moon is happening on Tuesday, April the 23rd at 4 degrees and 18 minutes of Scorpio. And so one of the things that I think about with this full moon, right, is the Buddha was enlightened under the full moon in Scorpio. And I believe this is celebrated as Vesak, the Buddha's birthday, their enlightenment, and their death, which all happens under the Scorpio full moon. Right. And in the story of the Buddha's enlightenment, they come to the immovable spot, right? Which I love this as, fixed water Scorpio, the immovable spot. So on one hand, we have King Holdfast, right? And on the other hand, we have the immovable spot. And I thought about reading this, but maybe I'll just tell it to you like I remember it, because that's fun. So the Buddha like takes their seat on the immovable spot under the Bodhi tree, and they go into meditation. This is after they've been a sadhu and have been fasting and fasting, and then they are given a bowl of rice and they eat the rice, and they're like, "Oh, snap, the middle path," right? Not too much, not too little, but like just right, you know? And, again, thinking about the holding of the opposites, right? The Hieros Gamos, um, as we think about this full moon, which is an opposition of the sun and the moon, right? And the Buddha is like, oh man, like rice isn't bad, right? Food isn't bad, life isn't bad. And then they go into meditation on the immovable spot. And as they are meditating, the god of illusion, Mara, shows up with riding on an elephant with like 10,000 soldiers, right? And they show up and they're like, Buddha, I'm gonna kill you. I'm calling you out. You like this version? And the Buddha's like, that's all good, man. Right? I'm good. You know, and they tempt them with violence, right? With war. They show them all of the atrocities that are happening everywhere, all the sorrow and suffering and sadness, The Buddha's like, no, it's good. I'm here. Movable spot, man. And then Mara gets their daughter's passion, lust, desire to tempt the Buddha, right? And try and seduce him. And he's like, nah, I'm good. You know, got my immovable spot. Everything's chill. Right. And then finally, Mara's like, all right, I see you. But what gives you the right, you, Siddhartha Gautama, right? What gives you the right to think that you can enlighten anyone or help anyone, right? You pompous bastard. What makes you think that you're special? And the Buddha just touches the earth and is like, because I'm here, right? Touches that immovable spot. And then Mara's like, no, and is thrust away. And I don't know, this has always sort of stuck with me, right? This sort of ability to stay in alignment, to stay on that immovable spot, right? Which we can think about as the universal like navel, the belly button, the axis mundi, right? That like point of alignment. And in the sort of illusion of suffering, right, violence, destruction that Mara shows, right, the confrontation, the Buddha is able to stay in that alignment. In the like lust and desire, right, that is trying to coax the Buddha out of this place of alignment, right, the Buddha is able to stay there. And then the sort of last trial is Mara being like, what makes you think that you can do this? What makes you think that you're better than anybody or can save anybody? And the Buddha is able to just be like, because I'm here, right? Because I'm showing up for this, you know, and because I'm like sitting on this immovable spot, because I am like staying in connection, because I am staying in alignment. And maybe like, I don't know if that's going to work, right? But I'm here. I'm willing to try. And maybe that's all it takes, right? And so, you know, as we come into this Scorpio full moon, right? And we have, again, on one side, King Holdfast, who is like trying to consolidate power, right? Because of the fear of what might happen if I didn't have this, that, and the other thing, if I didn't have power, right? And then on the other side, we have the Buddha on the immovable spot in their fixed water, right? Which is going kind of beneath the illusion of power, of consolidation, of all of these things, and is just like, I'm here and that's all that matters, right? Um, and I think that, as like thinking about that moment of enlightenment, right? The like depths of not just like beneath the surface of the physical, but also like going into the depths of the self, right? And into the connection of the self to the everything, and I think that is that kind of like world tree in that axis mundi, right? That pulls us away from the illusion of the world into the depths of the self and into deeper connection with everything. And, I think it's really important not to disassociate from what's going on, right? Being like, oh, this is all an illusion, right? Like, this is an illusion that we chose and we're here to learn. That's sort of my opinion, right? And to just be like, well, it's like just an illusion. It's just a TV show. This suffering in the world is just a TV show and I don't have to pay attention to it. I don't think is what the Buddha was meaning, right? I think the Buddha was like, I'm here doing this work. And a part of the way that I do this work is staying in alignment, is finding this immovable spot, which is not just in the world, but is in the self, right? Because if we're going to deal with the suffering of the world, like we need to have that resource in the self, that immovable spot that we can return to and connect in with so that we can hold that and we can hold the space for each other to go through our very human experiences here, you know? And so again, we have now Pluto in Aquarius, who is squaring all of this, squaring the tyrant holdfast and squaring the Buddha on their immovable spot. And we have, this is, Pluto is maybe the illusion of Mara, right? Who is like, but the suffering, right? But the lust. Pluto is also the planet of death, rebirth, and transformation, right? And so we have Pluto coming in and squaring all this, being like something needs to change. What can transform? And for the Buddha, the transformation came through finding that immovable spot and staying there and being in meditation and allowing the this thoughts and fears and struggles and turmoil to pass through. And that was what created the transformation. Prior to that, it was accepting the bowl of rice and eating the bowl of rice, right? And finding that middle path between being a sadhu, right, or renunciate, and being a prince, right? Between the two extremes. And so I think Pluto also during this full moon offers us that point of integration between the two extremes where like the transformation can occur, you know. But I think it takes us being in that sense of alignment so that we can hold it because, you know, we can either be sort of thrown around, which, you know, that works, it's just really painful, or we can have a good container to be able to hold the alchemical work, right? The cauldron that holds the transformation. You know, and again, Pluto, a planet of power, you know, and it really brings up these questions of power. Who holds power? How do we hold power? How do we share power? You know, and I'm really interested in this idea that we can have power with instead of power over. And for a lot of my life, I saw people with power as the enemy, right? Because there were really bad examples of holding power. Things like police, right? Government, state violence, you know, the wealthy, you know, and I just saw really poor examples of people with power. This also is like teachers, authority figures, anyone who told me what to do. And I'd be like, why? And they'd be like, because I said so. That is a bad example of somebody holding power, right? And I think that made me be like, I don't want that. That's bad. Those people who have that, I don't like. So that thing must be bad. You know, same thing in a lot of ways with money, right? Oh, people with tons of money, I don't like them, right? So they are bad. And so, like, if I had money, then I would be bad too. And I think those stories actually don't help anybody, you know, and definitely didn't help me. And so to think about, like, what is the container that I can create to be able to hold power? Right, in a way that I'm not consolidating it for myself, but I'm able to share it with others, right? How do we share the power that is inherent in our bodies, right? In our skin tone, in our gender, right? In our place of birth, right? Like these are powers that I can't do anything about. And so like what can I do with it? Like how can I use that to empower others or share that power with other people because like I can't get rid of it, you know. And how can I like hold power in a way that is not harmful to myself or others? And I think these are the questions that kind of come up, right, with this lunation. You know, I also think about like if we have fixed earth, right, and fixed water, right, and I think about fixed water as that like emotional depth. I think about Scorpio as like a pond, right, or a pool or a well that just goes like way deep down, you know, that you can never get to the bottom of, right? What do we like? What is fixed air? You know, what is Pluto in fixed air? And, you know, I was like on a hike yesterday thinking about all of this, and I was like, you know, like fix this and fix that. I'm like really like it fixed in my thinking about it. And then I look up and there's a dude on a horse right in front of me who I didn't even see. And it's like, what? Whoa, you know? And it's like, maybe that's the fixed air, right? This fixed way of thinking it's this or it's that, right? It's only these things. And then looking up and it's like, whoa, there's a dude on, like, there is some surreal business going on here, right? And like, maybe I should step to the side and rethink, you know, how I'm considering all of this. And maybe that is the like Uranus Jupiter conjunction, right? That like moment of like sudden revelation. Whoa, it's bigger than this, or like I never saw that coming, right? That was not on the bingo card, as my friend says, right? Um, you know, also maybe it is that Plutonian revolution, right? Transformation and thinking process through the like what I could have never considered on my own. Right. And I think about maybe like fixed air as like a think tank with a bunch of people in a room, right? Just like trying to solve a problem and just like thinking about what it smells like in that room, right? You know, 7 people have been in there for a week trying to solve a problem, right? and it just smells like, body odor and old pizza, right? That's in fixed air right there. And I think Pluto is like, yeah, we're going to get rid of this, right? We're going to break down these walls. We're going to open this up. We're going to put a horse in the hospital, right? We're going to bring in like a deep transformation to this like problem that we have structured in this way, in this really fixed way, in this stale air, right? Okay, so a couple more things I want to talk about. I think we've like, oh, okay. The last thing that I want to bring up, and this is coming back to the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction and staying on our theme of the Buddha's enlightenment, right? Um, we have this, with Jupiter and Uranus, I think there's this moment, this potential for like breakthrough, for like new ideas, for innovation, in these kind of like in this fixed axis, right? To break that down or to break through it or to transform it or to illuminate something. And I think about the idea of the Vajra, which is the lightning bolt, right? And it is the or thunderbolt of wisdom, of knowledge, right? That shatters the illusion, that shatters the imaginal, right? That brings us into the truth. And Jupiter, the planet that throws the lightning bolts. Uranus is very connected to lightning flashes of inspiration, right? And so, I think this conjunction brings with it the opportunity for that Vajra, for that lightning bolt, right? For that, object that shatters the illusion, you know? And um, yeah, I just wanted to bring that in because I think that's a an interesting piece, right? And we have all of these stories also of Jupiter kind of like illuminating things, right? And incinerating stuff and incinerating illusion. Um, and also Uranus breaking through things, right? As the Promethean force, also, if we think about Uranus as Prometheus, right? Bringing the sort of wisdom and the fire of consciousness down to humanity, you know? And to just give space, right, to be able to take up the lightning bolt, the thunderbolt, or to receive the thunderbolt in our world, right? And how we can hold that so it doesn't shatter us apart, right? How we can hold the that like bolt of truth, right? That breaks through the illusion without it like ripping us to shreds. Right. And sometimes like we need to be broken apart so that like we can see the truth in ourselves. So we can reconstitute ourselves. And I think this is also a Plutonian thing, right? Being boiled in the cauldron of Pluto until we get to the authentic self, right? That is the alchemy of Pluto. And sometimes that takes the like shattering of the illusion so that that process can begin or that process can deepen. Yeah. And so again, just thinking about this conjunction that we're coming off of and be like we're 2 days out, so it's not done, right? And this is a seed that has been planted for the next 14 years, right? Or at least for the next 7 until we get the opposition of Jupiter and Uranus and to see, okay, that's what's coming out of this. This is what's being formed here. This is what we're working with. Right now, we're just planting that seed. And part of that seed, I think, is that like taking up that Vajra, that lightning bolt, that ability to break through the illusion, right? To come into a deeper truth. And in these sort of fixed signs, again, what does it mean to like be on that immovable spot where like we can hold that truth and not be like sort of scattered all willy-nilly in the revelation, right? So speaking of revelation, on Thursday, April the 25th, we have Mercury stationing direct at 16 minutes and 59 arc minutes. Sorry, 16 degrees, 59 arc minutes of Aries. Is that correct? Let me just double check that. Yeah, sorry, 15 degrees, 59 arc minutes of Aries. So Mercury has been retrograde since April the 1st when they stationed retrograde at 27 degrees and 13 arc minutes. So almost there, almost made it through this one. Um, One thing that I want to point out is that Mercury's direct station is going to be basically on the degree where we had the Chiron North Node conjunction back in February. I believe that was February the 19th. And so I have a sense that this is going to be a revisiting of some core wounding that has been coming up. And like, oh man, that has just been the name of the game of 2024 thus far, because in February, I believe it was the 18th or 19th, sorry. We had the conjunction of Chiron in the North Node, right, which I gave a talk about for ESAR, but has a lot to do with sort of that core wounding and us being pulled into having to examine, our trauma, the stories that we're telling around our wounding, around feelings of not belonging, of not fitting in, of not being good enough, and the ways that those feelings point to the medicine that can help us to heal. And how we can share that with other people. Sounds good. In practice, it's really painful. Sorry, I don't know what's going on today. Anyway, in practice, like being pulled into Chiron's cave, and being like, oh my God, this is the thing that I need to heal is not that much fun, right? Really like cuts into productivity and whatnot. Um, and I think it's really good to be able to be gentle with ourselves and kind to ourselves, and also during like Aries season, also in our fast-paced technological world, it's really difficult to find that space and find that time to like actually give ourselves the care that we need to go like deeper into our healing journey, whatever that looks like. So I think that there is a tendency to keep all of that on the surface, and then when we have Chiron conjunct something like the North Node that is like pulling us deep into it, it can be really destabilizing and pretty uncomfortable. And then that sort of gets exacerbated by Mercury stationing direct on April the 1st, coming into conjunct Chiron. We also have the solar eclipse on the 8th, where the sun and moon during that solar eclipse were exactly conjunct Chiron. And I think that's a lot of the kind of conscious ego identity opening up a little bit, and what's on the other side is Chiron being like, remember me. Remember that thing that they did to you in 7th grade, right? Remember that thing your mom said one time. Ta-da. Right, and it's just like, oh no. And like we're left having to like pick up the pieces of all of that, right? And left having to look at these things that are incredibly uncomfortable. And a lot of the way that I've experienced Chiron is as like a very visceral survival fear, right? Of like a feeling of overwhelm and being like, oh my God, I can't handle it, right? I can't do it. It's never gonna work. And then finding ways to resource ourselves and help ourselves and support ourselves, right? And as we do that and get a little better, right, we can start being like, oh, I see that you're going through something that I was just going through, right? And this is the thing that's been working for me, right? And then we can start supporting each other and co-regulating, right? Just getting a little bit of like okayness, right? And this does not mean like I'm starting a healing blog or a retreat center, right? This just means being like, oh, I noticed like you're going through this thing, and this is this thing that helped me, right? When I found myself in a similar place, and this is what's been helping me. And so as Mercury stations retrograde on this point, or sorry, as Mercury stations direct on this point, that sort of kicked all of this off, all of this Chiron business off. I think it is a revisiting of some of the work that we've been doing or being asked to do, right? Which, a lot of it, like, this is, I think, a balance between the unconscious and the conscious where things emerge and we're like, whoa, I've got like a bus to catch. I can't right now, and it's like, okay. And then it comes up again. We're like, whoa, I don't really want to look at that. And it, like recedes again as Mercury comes stations direct, it like slows down and like kind of grinds into that point that is already like really charged with that Chiron North Node energy. And so it's like, okay, like now I kind of can't think of anything but this, right? And we're like really being asked to sit with and hold the sort of discomfort that comes from that wounded place, right? Whatever that looks like. And Mercury, fortunately, is a messenger, right? They are a psychopomp. They lead us into the places that we don't want to go or don't necessarily have access to on a regular basis. And as they are sort of bringing this stuff up, we can hopefully trust that like we're not going to get more than we can handle, and to just like show up in a way where we can take what we need, right? Around our abilities to heal, our abilities to communicate our wounding, our abilities to sit with like the discomfort, right? And ask, what does this have for me? What is the lesson that is here, right? What do you want to show me? Right. And in the ways that we're able to sort of heal these things, or find structures to help support us through wounds of abandonment, right? Trauma, addiction, right? The wound of like not wanting to be here, right? Which I think might come up in Taurus season, right? Is the like, I really don't want to be here, especially for those of us with Chiron and Taurus, because that's how we connect in with that archetype, is like where it sits in our natal chart. And so again, we're getting this opportunity to sort of examine and explore and take the steps forward, right? As Mercury stations direct, right? So we've been revisiting and kind of like pulling everything out. And now it's like, okay, this is something that I can work with, right? And seeing steps forward, seeing ways to move forward. Okay, the last thing that I want to talk about in these last 3 minutes is that on Sunday, April the 28th, we are getting Mars conjunct Neptune at 28 degrees and 52 minutes of Pisces. This is a difficult one, right? Because Mars is action and energy, right? Mars is like penetrative action. It's like I'm doing stuff. And Neptune is like, why bother doing anything? Everything is everything, bro. Like, it's all an illusion. Why do anything? And Mars is like, because I want to. And Neptune's like, that's dumb. So Mars can get really frustrated with this sort of lack of energy, the lack of direction, the lack of purpose, the lack of meaning, you know. Neptune can also be like, there's something deeper, there's something more, right? Go find it. And Mars can get very disheartened by like not being able to get to the like meaning or purpose or point in the like diffuse ocean of Neptunian consciousness. And so it can make Mars pretty like sad and depressed. And Mars can, turn to Mars, Neptune I've seen as a signature for drugs and alcohol, right? For disassociation. That martial drive is frustrated, and then Mars is like, whatever, what's the point, right? I might as well just check out, So I think there's like that energy there. Another way that I think about this, right, is as like Moby Dick, right, or Jonah and the Whale, which are two stories that I'm very associated with, right? And I think about Mars as the like, hero or warrior, or even like Captain Ahab, who is like constantly chasing the white whale, right? And that is that like martial quest, and then being sort of the conjunction is the end of Moby Dick, which I'm not going to spoil for anybody because that book is fantastic. But yeah, the coming together of Ahab and the white whale, or in the book of Jonah, the coming together of Jonah and the whale, right? Which is the leaving the kind of ego idea of this is what I need to do, and surrendering to the thing that is bigger than us, right? And Joseph Campbell talks about one of the stages in the hero's journey is the belly of the whale, which is a surrender moment where we are devoured by the whale, right? And the whale is like a temple, right? The Leviathan is the temple, and we go inside the temple and we like reorient ourselves to the divine. And I think that is the opportunity of Mars and Neptune, instead of the like warrior who is frustrated because they can't fight the thing, right? Or they can't find the point. It is a moment of surrender. It is a moment of release where we are letting go and being swallowed by the everything, and going into the temple and going into the state of connection, and the state of surrender, and the state of being like, I don't know. And I think this comes back to that this idea of the tyrant holdfast and the holding on to power and holding on to the this is what I need to do, this fixed idea, right? And releasing all of that and surrendering all of that and surrendering anything that I know, right? To see what can be revealed, right? To see a deeper spiritual purpose for action. And I think this is also the Buddha attaining light enlightenment under the Scorpio new moon, Scorpio full moon, right? Coming to that depth, right? Being swallowed by the illusion and like cutting through that with the Vajra, with the lightning bolt of insight and wisdom, right? And this is a non-action. This is just being and being able to receive, which Mars has some difficulty with because Mars is all about action, right? But if we can lay down our martial weaponry, right, and go into the temple, right, go into the belly of the whale and allow ourselves to sort of be digested in it, right, and allow something new to emerge that helps us to reorient our kind of mission or our hero's quest, right, away from what I think I need to do and more in line with what I'm being asked, what is being asked of me. And this is the story of Jonah in a whale shell, right? God is like, Jonah, go preach to Nineveh. And Jonah's like, absolutely fucking not, bro. That is not happening. Those people are nuts. They'll kill me. And God's like, okay, suit yourself, but I'd really like you to do this. Jonah's like, no way. And, gets on a boat, tries to like go as far as he can away from Nineveh. A storm kicks up and like starts pushing him back. Jonah's like, no way, no way. And God's like, cool, and starts throwing sailors overboard. Jonah's like, no, like that's not fair. God, why? And it's like, okay, it's me, guys. I'm the reason for this. And they throw him overboard. He's swallowed up by a whale, and he sits there until he's like, okay, I'll do what you want me to do, God. I think it's a really bad idea, but I see that I have no other choice but to, come into alignment with what is asked of me. And this is basically the story of my life, which is it's a funny, haha story now. I do not recommend being devoured by a whale, but when it happens, like, what are you gonna do? Yeah, totally meta, right? Lindsay, Lindsay said Jonah telling the Jonah story. Yeah, it's this meta moment. Um, but yeah, when you're swallowed by a whale, like what are you gonna do? You can't fight your way out. You just gotta like surrender and give in, right? And then Jonah shows up in Nineveh and is like, "Hey guys, it'd be like great if you like accepted the one true God." They're like, "Cool." I already was gonna do that, bro. And Jonah's like, "What?" So it can be easy, right? It can be easy. And I think it's just the stories that we tell ourselves about how it's got to be or what I'm supposed to be or what I'm supposed to do that like add this level of complexity that doesn't need to be there, and I think that this Neptune Mars moment is a moment to like go and surrender and let go and allow the story that we're supposed to be living to emerge, right? And take the pressure off Mars to always be fighting, because maybe it can be easy. And with that, and just going into this Scorpio full moon, keep it simple, right? Just let it be easy, whatever that means to you. And, I have a lot more to say, but I'll respect everybody's time and get up out of here. I hope you have a great week in space, my friends. Just a heads up, I'm going to be teaching a class with Sarah Janes, who is an author and mythologist. This class will be beginning, I believe, May 12th. It's an 8-week class on myth and dreaming. We'll be unpacking different archetypal themes each and every week, including creation, the sun and the moon, serpents, underworld, resurrection, sacrifice, all that good stuff. And so we'll be talking about that through the context of mythology, archetype, dreaming, and we have some really cool guest speakers who are going to contribute, including Marlena Seven Bremner, the artist and alchemist and author, also my partner, who's really brilliant and beautiful. Sam Reynolds is going to do one of the classes. Kristen Mathis, who is a Orphic uh, is translating the Orphic hymns and was just on the astrology podcast. I believe she's going to be doing the underworld one. So it's going to be a great class. A lot of mythology, a lot of magic, a lot of good stuff. If you're interested, check it out on. I got a link in my bio. I'll put a link in the show notes. If you're on AstroStar, you can check out my website. I think I have it. I don't have it on my website, but I will get you links as well. And yeah, other than that, I am an advisor on the excellent AstroStar app. This is what I do this through. You can find me on AstroStar Live. Follow me. I got a link in my bio. For that, I'll put a link in the show notes. I do this talk every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And yeah, AstroStar is a great place for astrologers to get down. If you're interested in astrology, I highly recommend checking it out. It's a pretty well curated community with real live astrologers doing real live astrology and dropping knowledge on a regular basis. So check out the AstroStar Live app wherever you get your apps at. I am available for doing readings through that. I don't have a lot of free time, but usually on weekends. Also, there are a number of other pretty excellent and accomplished astrologers who are available for readings and are doing classes, giving talks, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, check it out, AstroStar Live. And that is, I believe, all the astro weather that is fit to print, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure to check out my weekly astrology themed radio show. There's a link in my stories for that. It's called the Melee Report. You can find it on SoundCloud. Comes out each and every Friday for Patreon, every Saturday for everybody else, and that is the astrology of the week set to music. You got to hear it to believe it. And with that, I'm going to get up out of here. Have a very happy and safe full moon, my friends. Much love. Be well. And I will see y'all next time. Bye now.